Chapter 7. The Man with the Red Eyes. "We knew we were going to be in danger," Charles Wallace said. "Mrs. Whatsit told us that." "Yes, and she told us that it was going to be worse for you than for Meg and me, and that you must be careful. You stay right here with Meg, old sport. Let me go in and case the joint, and then report to you." "No," Charles Wallace said firmly. "She told us to stay together. She told us not to go off by ourselves." "She told you to not go off by yourself. I'm the oldest, and I should go in first." "No." Meg's voice was flat. "Charles is right, Cal. We have to stay together. Suppose you didn't come out, and we had to go in after you. Come on. But let's hold hands if you don't mind." Holding hands, they crossed the street. The huge Central Intelligence Building had only one door, but it was an enormous one, at least 2 stories high and wider than a room, made of a dull, bronze-like material. "Do we just knock?" Meg giggled. Calvin studied the door. "There isn't any handle or knob or latch or anything. Maybe there's another way to get in." "Let's try knocking anyhow," Charles said. He raised his hand, but before he touched the door, it slid up from the top and into each side, splitting into 3 sections that had been completely invisible a moment before. The startled children looked up into a great entrance hall of dull, greeny marble. Marble benches lined 3 of the walls. People were sitting there like statues, the green of the marble reflecting on their faces and looking bilious. They turned their heads at the door as the door opened, saw the children, and looked away again. "Come on," Charles said, and still holding hands, they stepped in. As they crossed the threshold, the door shut silently behind them. Meg looked up at Calvin and Charles, and they, like the people waiting, were a sickly green. The children went up to the blank fourth wall. It seemed unsubstantial, as though one might be able to walk through it. Charles put out his hand. "It's solid and icy cold." Calvin touched it too. "Ugh." Meg's left hand was held by Charles, her right by Calvin, and she had no desire to let go of either of them to touch the wall. "Let's ask somebody something." Charles led them over to one of the benches. Could you tell us what the process around here?" he asked one of the men. The men all wore nondescript business suits, and though their features were as different one from the other as features of men on earth, there was all the sameness to them. Like the sameness of people riding in a subway, Meg thought. Only on a subway, every once in a while, there's somebody different, and here there isn't. The man looked at the men warily. "The procedure for what?" "How do you know whoever is in authority?" Charles asked. "You present your papers to the A machine. You ought to know that," the man said severely. "What is the A machine?" Calvin asked. The man pointed to the blank wall. "But there isn't a door or anything," Calvin said. "How do we get in?" "You put your S papers in the B slot," the man said. "Why are you asking me these stupid questions? Do you think I don't know the answers? You'd better not play any games around here, or you'll have to go through the process machine again, and you don't want to do that." "We're strangers here," Calvin said. "That's why we don't know about things. Please tell us, sir, who are you and what do you do?" "I run a number 1 spelling machine on the 2nd grade level." "But what are you doing here now?" Charles Wallace asked. "I'm here to report that one of my letters is jamming, and until it can be properly oiled by the F-grade oiler, there is danger of jammed mines." "Raspberry jam or strawberry jam or raspberry?" Charles Wallace murmured. Calvin looked down at Charles and shook his head warningly. Meg gave the little boy's hand a slight understanding pressure. Charles Wallace, she was quite sure, was not trying to be rude or funny. It was his way of whistling in the dark. The man looked at Charles sharply. "I think I shall have to report you. I'm fond of children, due to the nature of my work, and I don't like to get them in trouble. But rather than run the risk of reprocessing, I must report you." "Maybe that's a good idea," Charles said. "Who do you report us to?" "To whom do I report you?" "Well, to whom, then? I'm not on the 2nd grade level yet." "I wish he wouldn't act so sure of himself," Meg thought, looking anxiously at Charles, and holding his hand more and more tightly until he wiggled his fingers in protest. That's what Mrs. Whatsit had said to him he had to watch, being proud. "Don't, please don't," she thought hard at Charles. She wondered if Calvin realized that a lot of the arrogance was bravado. The man stood up, moved jerkily as though he had been sitting for a long time. "I hope he isn't too hard on you," he murmured as he led the children toward the empty fourth wall. "But I've been reprocessed once, and that was more than enough. And I don't want to get sit to it. I've never been sent to it, and I can't risk that happen." There was it again. What was this it? The man took from his pocket a folder filled with papers of every color. He shuffled through them carefully, finally withdrawing one. "I've had several reports to make lately. I shall have to ask for a requisition of more A21 cards." He took the card and put it against the wall. It slid through the marble as though it were being sucked in and disappeared. "You may be detained for a few days," the man said, "but I'm sure they won't be too hard on you because of your youth. Just relax and don't bite, and it will all be much easier for you." He went back to his seat, leaving the children standing and staring at the blank wall, and suddenly the wall was no longer there, and they were looking into an enormous room lined with machines. They were not unlike the great computing machines Meg had seen in her science books, and that she knew her father sometimes worked with. Some did not seem to be in use. In others, lights were flickering on and off. In one machine, a long tape was being eaten. In another, a series of dot dashes were being punched. Several white-robed attendants were moving about tending the machines. If they saw the children, they gave no sign. Calvin muttered something. "What?" Meg asked him. "There is nothing to fear except fear itself," Calvin said. "I'm quoting, like Mrs. Who. Meg, I'm scared stiff." "So am I." Meg held his hand more tightly. "Come on." They stepped into the room with the machines. In spite of the enormous width of the room, it was even larger than it was wide. Perspective made the long rows of machines almost to meet. The children walked down the center of the room, keeping as far from the machines as possible. "Though I don't suppose they're radioactive or anything," Charles Wallace said, "or that they're going to reach out and grab us and chew us up." After they had walked for what seemed like miles, they could see that the enormous room did have an end, and at that end there was something. Charles Wallace said suddenly, and his voice held panic, "Don't let go of my hands. Hold me tight. He's trying to get at me." "Who?" Meg squeaked. "I don't know, but he's trying to get in at me. I can feel him." "Let's go back." Calvin started to pull away. "No," Charles Wallace said. "I have to go on. We have to make decisions, and we can't make them based on fear." His voice sounded old and strange and remote. Meg, clasping his small hand tightly, could feel it sweating in hers. As they approached the end of the room, their steps slowed. Before them was a platform. On the platform was a chair, and on the chair was a man. What was there about him that seemed to contain all the coldness and darkness they had felt as they plunged through the black thing on their way to this planet? "I've been waiting for you, my dears," the man said. His voice was kind and gentle, not at all the cold and frightening voice that Meg had expected. It took her a moment to realize that though the voice came from the man, he had not opened his mouth or moved his lips at all. There were no real words had been spoken to fall upon her ears, that he had somehow communicated directly into their brains. "But how does it happen that there are three of you?" the man asked. Charles Wallace spoke with harsh boldness, but Meg could feel him trembling. "Oh, Calvin just came along for the ride." "Oh, he did he?" For a moment there was a sharpness to the voice that spoke inside their minds. Then it relaxed and became soothing again. "I hope that it has been a pleasant one so far." "Very educational," Charles Wallace said. "Let Calvin speak for himself," the man ordered. Calvin growled, his lips tight, his body rigid. "I have nothing to say." Meg stared at the man in horrified fascination. His eyes were bright and had a reddish glow. Above his head was a light, and it glowed with the same manner as the eyes, pulsing and throbbing in steady rhythm. Charles Wallace shut his eyes tightly. "Close your eyes," he said to Meg and Calvin. "Don't look at the light. Don't look at his eyes. He'll hypnotize you." "Clever, aren't you?" "Focusing your eyes would, of course, help," the soothing voice went on. "But there are other ways, my little man. Oh, yes, there are other ways." "If you shall try it on me, I shall kick you," Charles Wallace said. It was the first time Meg had ever heard Charles Wallace suggesting violence. "Oh, will you, indeed, my little man?" The thought was tolerant, amused, but four men in dark smocks appeared and flanked the children. "Now, my dears," the words continued, "I shall of course have no need of recourse to violence, but I thought perhaps it would save you pain if I showed you at once that it would do you no good to try to oppose me." You see, what you will soon realize is that there is no need to fight me. Not only is there no need, but you will not have the slightest desire to do so. For why should you wish to fight someone who is here only to save you pain and trouble? For you, as well as the rest of all the happy, useful people on this planet, I, in my own strength, am willing to assume all the pain, all the responsibility, all the burdens of thought and decisions. We will make our own decisions, thought Charles Wallace. But of course, and our decisions will be one, yours and mine. Don't you see how much better, how much easier for you that is? Let me show you. Let us say the multiplication table together. No, Charles Wallace said. Once one is one, once two is two, once three is three. Mary had a little lamb, Charles Wallace shouted. Its fleece was white as snow. Once four is four, once five is five, once six is six. And everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. Once seven is seven, once eight is eight, once nine is nine. Peter, Peter, pumpkin eater, had a wife and couldn't keep her. Once 10 is 10, once 11 is 11, once 12 is 12. The number words pounded insistently against Meg's brain. They seemed to be boring their way into her skull. Twice one is two, twice two is four, twice three is six. Calvin's voice came out in an angry shout. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Twice five is eight, twice five is 10. Twice four is eight, twice five is 10, twice six is 12. Father, Meg screamed, father! The half scream, half involuntary, jerked her mind back out of the darkness. The words of the multiplication table seemed to break up into laughter. Splendid, splendid! You have passed your preliminary test with flying colors. You didn't think we were as easy as all that, falling for that old stuff, did you? Charles Wallace demanded. Ah, I had most sincerely hoped not. But, after all, you are very young and very impressionable. The younger the better, my little man, the younger the better. Meg looked up at the fiery eyes and at the light pulsing above them, and then away. She tried looking at the mouth, at the thin, almost colorless lips, and this was more possible, even though she had to look obliquely, so that she was not sure exactly what the face really looked like, whether it was a young or old or cruel or kind, man or alien, human or alien. If you please, she said, trying to sound calm and brave, the only reason we are here is because we think our father is here. Can you help us? Tell us where to find him? Ah, your father. There seemed to be a great chortling of delight. Ah, yes, your father. It is not can I, you know, young lady, but will I? Will you then? Well, that depends on a number of things. Why do you want your father? Well, didn't you ever have a father yourself? Meg demanded. You don't want him for a reason. You want him because he's your father. Ah, but he hasn't been very acting like a father lately, has he? Abandoning his wife and his four little children to go gallivanting off on wild adventures of his own? He was working for the government. He'd never have left us otherwise, and we want to see him right now, please. My, but the little miss is impatient. Patience, patience, young lady. Meg did not tell the man on the chair that patience was not one of her virtues.